So first thing, okay, it says up top, the nth root of a number a can be written as the radical expression that you see right here. Does anyone know what this n, the little subscript number, superscript, I guess, number is called? Power thingy. I don't expect any of you to know it. It's called the index, okay? Normally, you guys are used to a square root that looks like that, and there's no number there. What is the number if there's no number there? 2. It's a 2. It's essentially there's a 2 there when it's a square root, but they don't ever write the 2 in because it's so common that it's square root that they just leave it as the radical and assume that a 2 is there. This part of it, this symbol here, is called the what? It's the square root. That is called the radical symbol. So that's a radical. And then the thing that's under the radical symbol, does anyone know what that's called? Who said that? Look at you. That's the radicand. So you have radical, radicand, and index that all come into play in this. Like I said before, if there is no index, we assume that that's the number 2. Okay, so if there's no number written in there, then pretend there's a 2 written in there. Okay, again, we talked about this last chapter, the list of perfect squares. What's the first perfect square? Okay, yes, technically it's 1. But do we ever use the 1? No, because dividing by 1 just gets us that same number back. So then it's 4. 2 times 2 is 4. What's the next perfect square? 9. The next one? 16. Next? 25. Keep going. 36. 49. 64. 81. 100. Do you know 11 squared? 121 and 144. So these are the most common perfect squares. I think it's super helpful to just like cut and paste, copy and paste at the top of every assignment those numbers if you struggle to remember what they are. If you don't remember what they are, you're just squaring each number. 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared. Let your calculator help you with that. You are welcome to do that. Okay, so when we are taking the square root of something, sometimes they work out to beautiful numbers, other times not so beautiful numbers. The square root of 16, is that a beautiful number? Yep. I guess that's subjective, huh? I think it's a beautiful number because it's a whole number. It's the number 4. You are just going to be working with what's called the principal root on these, so just the positive version. Technically, if we set it up as an equation, you'd have to answer it's what? 4 or negative 4, okay? We're just going to focus on the principal root for now, which is the positive one. Number 2, what's different about this one? This is 2 rad 121. What do you got to do? What operation is happening between the 2 and the radical? What is it? Multiplication. A lot of people put addition in between there. That is wrong. Please don't add, okay? If a number is sitting next to something with no symbol in between, it's always multiplication. What's the square root of 121? 11. So this is really 2 times 11. So this is 22, okay? Just make sure you're not adding. So look at example 4 there. 3 rad 400. Anyone know the square root of 400? I bet some of you do. It's what? 20. Square root of 400 is 20. So this is 3. What operation are you doing between the 3 and the 20? You're multiplying. So 3 times 20 or 60 would be that value. We're going to skip 3 for now because we don't need it. Okay, so then here are the 3 steps that you're going to use when we are simplifying ones that aren't the beautiful ones, okay? These ones look a little less fancy. Maybe it's more fancy. They look different, right? And you did this. We're breaking down a radical into simplest radical form. We did this last chapter. Find the largest perfect square, the largest, okay? Because if you find a small one, remember last time some of you were like, wait, I got 4 rad 20. How is that different than what you got? that rad 20, if it can still be broken down, we got to keep breaking it down. So find the largest perfect square and break that down. Then you're going to take the square root of the perfect square, and the radical goes away because we've taken the square root. And then your leftover is going to be under that radical symbol still. So keep this list handy. Look at the number 32. Which of those perfect square numbers, the biggest perfect square number that we can find, is 32 divisible by? 16. So this becomes the perfect square on the left, the one that is not a perfect square on the right. So 16 is the perfect square. So what goes underneath on the right? The 2. What is the value of the square root of 32 then? How do we simplify that? 4 times the square root of 2. So notice we took the 16 and we took the square root. I think what a lot of you did, not a lot, what a handful of you did on the test is you wrote the square root of 16 times the square root of 2, and then you broke this down to the square root of 4. But the square root of 4 and the square root of 16 are very different numbers, right? So don't take the square root twice because you could. Just take the square root and now you get that new whole number. Let me show you something here. Because some of you probably said you can divide by 4. Did anyone try that? This is not wrong. It's just not simplified. The square root of 4 is 2 times the square root of 8. This is what I was warning you about earlier. The square root of 8 has a perfect square factor. It's 4. So now you have 2 times the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. What's the square root of 4? 2. So this is 2 times 2 times the square root of 2, which is 4 times the square root of 2. So notice we get the same answer. This is way more work. So I highly recommend you start high on your list of perfect squares, right? Start over here and work your way this way so that you find the best one first. Questions on that? All right. Square root of 180 is another good example of this. Did you find a perfect square? Can you find a perfect square that 180 is divisible by? Do you remember how to do this in your calculator? 180 divided by 100, 180 divided by 81, 180 divided by 64. You just keep dividing by the next perfect square. Which one works? 36. Maybe you want to get your calculator out and plug and chug a little with me here. 36 times what gets you 180? 5. Okay, so you have the square root of 36 times the square root of 5. What does that simplify to? 6 rad 5. Okay. Okay, I want you to try 7 and 9 right now, and I will come see how it's going. Give those a go. Get your calculator out so you can try it out. Have fun.
Shut up.
All right. What did you get on number 7? 7 rad 3. So this is, what perfect square did you divide by? 49. So hear me again, because I think some of you are confused on this. If you have the number 147, you're going to go 147 divided by, pick a high number, 81, okay? 147 divided by 81, 147 divided by 64, 147 divided by 49. Because if you start down here, a lot of times those work, but they're not the best. And then you end up doing way more work. So start high, start on this end, and move this way as you go, okay? So 147 is divisible by 49. 49 times 3 gets you that. So that is 7 times the square root of 3, okay? What'd you get for 48? Which two numbers? 16 and 3. So again, 48 divided by, it's not going to be 49, right? That doesn't make sense. 48 divided by, maybe you think 36 could work. 25 is not going to work. 16 does work. And that is 4 times the square root of 3, okay? Don't take the square root of 4. You're not taking the radical for something you already took the square root of, okay? Good on that? Okay, number 10 then. No, we didn't do number 8. Number 10, you have 2 times the square root of 54. What perfect square is 54 divisible by? Try that in your calculator if you don't know it off the top of your head. 9. Okay, so 9 and 6 will be those numbers. Here's where a lot of people make a silly little mistake is they forget that there's that 2 out in front. What's the square root of 9? 3. What operation is happening between the 2 and the 3? Multiplication. So this is going to be 6 times the square root of 6. Do you know how you can check your answers? This is great. This is a really easy way to check your answer. Plug this into your calculator, 6 times the square root of 6, and then plug this into your calculator, 2 times the square root of 54. You should get the same decimal. It's going to be a funky decimal, but it should be the same number. If it's not the same number, then you don't have the right setup. Okay? If you plug this into your calculator, and then you plug this into your calculator, they should be equal. Okay? Questions on that? Okay, number 11, and then we're going to do a little bit of newness here. All right, so it's -5 times the square root of 150. What perfect square is 150 divisible by? Yeah, it would be 25. So you have a -5, you have the square root of 25 times the square root of what? 6. Yep, so go 150 divided by 25 and you get 6 there. So this is -5 times is our operation 5 and the square root of 6. What does this simplify to? -25 times the square root of 6. And again, if you plug into your calculator -25 root 6 and -5 root 150, you will get the same value. If you don't, something's wrong. Okay, last piece of this today is there will be perfect cubes coming into play. So let me show you the list of perfect cubes. So your perfect cubes, you have 1 cubed, that's 1. What's 2 cubed? Anybody know it? It's not 6, it's not 2 times 3, it's 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Yeah. Anyone know what 3 cubed is? 27. That's really all the farther. I expect that you probably just know off the top of your head right now, but I think you'll get familiar with the other ones. Anyone know what 4 cubed is? It's 64. Do you know how to plug cubed into your calculator? The caret, right? The little, this button. So you go 4 caret 3 is 4 to the 3rd power. Anyone know what 5 cubed is? You might know this one, 125. I'm going to give you more. Rarely will you see the rest of these. So 216, 343, 512, 729, and 1,000. Those are not very common. You're not going to see them a ton. I feel like we usually live right around here for what we're going to do. Okay, so perfect cube roots. Did I show you guys how to do this, or was that my algebra 2? Have you plugged a cube root into your calculator yet? No, okay. Let me show you how you do this on your calculator. Get your calculator out. For most of you, those of you that have the TI-30, this is what you're gonna plug in, because your calculator has a square root button, and then it has this button. That's the one you need for a cube root, and you have to tell it it's a cube root. So you are gonna plug in 3, and then hit the second key, and then it's the caret. This is what's above that caret key. And then for this one anyway, you would type in the number 8. Okay, so if you go 3, second caret, 8, that's saying take the cube root of 8. What do you get? 2. Okay, so this is equal to 2. Look at this one. The cube root of a negative 27. Are you allowed to take the cube root of a negative? Yes, because here's the deal. A square root, you cannot, because a negative times a negative is a positive. But what's a negative times a negative times a negative? A negative. So with cube roots, you can have a negative under there and get an answer. Try this. Plug in 3, second, caret, and then negative 27. What do you get? It's a negative 3. It's negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. So with square roots, no negative, okay? That's not a rational answer. With a cube root, a negative is okay. Your answer should be negative if it's a negative underneath there, okay? Okay, 16 says 5 times the cube root of 343. So plug in the cube root of 343 in your calculator for me right now. What is the cube root of 343? 7. So really what this is saying is 5 times 7, or 35. Okay, and if you're struggling with how to get that cube root plugged in, let me know. I will gladly come show you what you're doing there. Okay, so here's where this gets fancy, because now instead of square roots, we're breaking down cube roots. And people are less familiar with cube roots, okay? So now you really want this list very handy, because you're going to be dividing by those numbers, okay? So take a look at this first one. 40 is divisible by which of these numbers up here? 8. Okay, so we're going to break this down. The cube root of 8, and what? What gets us to 40? 5. So the cube root of 8 times the cube root of 5. The cube root of 5 is not a nice number. It's a funky decimal. We don't like it, okay? But the cube root of 8 is what? 2, okay? So your answer here is 2 times the cube root of 5, and you're done. So it's very similar to what we were doing with the square roots, but now it's with cube roots instead. Did you just say you don't want those? My children would like jump on you for those. No, I don't want them. I'm just saying I can't believe you don't want them, because my children beg me for those all the time. Look at number 22. So you have a negative 2, but then we're going to break this down. Is there a perfect cube that 250 is divisible by? What? So look at your list of numbers up here. Is there one of these that 250 is divisible by? 125. Now, here's the deal. Put the negative with the one that is perfect. You good? Yeah. So put the negative over here. What are we multiplying negative 125 by to get a negative 250? A positive 2. Okay, so keep the negative with the perfect. Put the positive with the other. So this is negative 2. What's the cube root of negative 125? Plug it into your calculator. It's a negative 5. Okay? Shane, he's fine. Stay here. Oh, you stop. just because you can't turn around to see him. -2 times -5 times the cube root of 2, okay? This becomes what?
10.
A positive 10. So this is 10 times the cube root of 2, and that's as far as you can go with it. You can't take the cube root of 2, so you just leave it like that. Again, if you're not sure on these, plug this into your calculator and then plug this into your calculator, and they should be the same thing. Okay? Questions on that? Okay. Try this one on your own. 23. 8 times the cube root of -26. Yeah.
So you type in the cube root, go 8 seconds, and then caret cube. So that's a cube root of 343 is 7. So this is 5 times 7. And you must have just typed one of the numbers in the computer or something.
All right, did you find a perfect cube that 96 is divisible by? Did you find one? I haven't even done it. 8. So where are we going to put the negative? With the 8 or with the 12? With the 8. Put it with the perfect one. The positive goes with the one that's not going to break down. So this is 8 times what? -2. So 8 times -2 times the cube root of 12, you get a -16, 8 times -2, times the cube root of 12.